Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the show. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, the Podcast Index, and Podcasting 2.0. We'd really appreciate if you download Fountain, find us there, and support us via Value for Value. We hope you enjoy the show. Happy listening. Tonight's guest is Jay Bradley. I met Jay over 8 years ago in Napa, California, at a very large industry event called Channel Connect, where he was the president of a company called Intelisys. I got to witness firsthand the magic of Jay Bradley and the special finesse that he brought to the channel community. I'm not going to go any further here introducing Jay. The story is self-explanatory, and I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I do. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show, my brother, Jay Bradley. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. I hear that you have a glass to either your right or to your left, and you may be drinking something. Why don't you, first of all, we always start off with a little toast. Little cheers, boom.
Cheers.
And tell the audience what you're sipping on here tonight.
Tonight's a little Jameson.
Oh, very nice. Just neat. No, you got on the rocks there.
I got it on the rocks, and I actually pulled down my White Pass and Yukon route from my Alaskan cruise.
Nice.
So I'm thinking about my Alaskan cruise while I'm sipping my Jameson and talking to you, my friend.
I love it. You know, the funny thing is that when I create shorts of these episodes, anything around alcohol gets the most views.
Oh, cool.
So we're on to something here for sure. I am drinking a Socorro Reposado tequila, recommended to me by a stranger at the liquor store. I was walking up and down the tequila aisle. He goes, "Oh, what do you drink?" I said, "I drink this." He goes, "Oh, I haven't tried that." And he grabs the bottle.
Yeah.
I said, "What do you drink?" He said, "I drink the Socorro." I grabbed the bottle. I said, "Hey, maybe I'll catch up with you some other time." And I like it. I put a little bit of lime juice in it. I put little splash of cranberry.
Is it like aged or what is it?
It's not really aged. It's not even a super high end. It's just an easy drink.
Yeah.
It's not the bottom of the barrel. It's mid grade, but it's tasty. Cheers. Here's to the good night. Cheers, cheers, cheers. All right, Jay.
You never why not a little Jameson?
No, you can't go wrong with a drink at 3 o'clock in the afternoon either. So I think we're on to something here. So, Jay, tell the audience who Jay Bradley is.
Who is Jay Bradley? Well, first and foremost, I think in context of our conversation, Jay Bradley's a guy who loves the channel. Right. He loves entrepreneurs. He loves what partners do in this industry. He loves the ecosystem. Everything about it. I mean, I was explaining to somebody today. I met a new tax guy. So I'm selling a piece of property in West Virginia. Needed some tax advice. Laird, Lawrence. And you know, tax ties, I truly believe I've never had one, and I haven't known anybody else who's ever had one. Tax guys are always just a little bit off.
Okay.
Just a little different than everybody else.
Oh, anyway, often personality, not often their numbers.
Just a little bit off.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I met Larry for the first time and talked about my little tax issue with them. And he said, "So what did you do?" And I explained what the channel was. And I said, it's a bunch of really professional, really interesting personalities, driven people that just compete. They compete. And so when you say, who is Jay Bradley? Jay Bradley's a guy who loves those guys. And that's why I've had success in this channel. Because people get it. They understand. They're like, this guy actually thinks we're pretty cool. This guy actually thinks my success and my well-being is kind of more important than his company's well-being.
It's certainly been your secret sauce. For the audience, I've known Jay for a little over 8 years now. And I was able to get access to Jay's pixie dust differently than had I started the channel as a, sole operator. But there's so much more about Jay Bradley that the audience and probably I don't even know about. We have plenty of time here tonight, Jay. So why don't you take us back to how you got started in business, and we'll work our way up, and we'll weave and bob and weave through technology.
Yeah.
And we'll figure out where we are. I'm going to pull the mic a little bit closer. There we go.
I want.
And let's make it happen. So tell us how you got started.
I'll bet when you interviewed Kreifel, he had his own mic.
He did, and it was off to the side here. And what I didn't really, he was episode number 3, and so I was learning a lot about the platform and the lighting and people's sound and all of that. Well, he had the mic on the side, but on the other side of it, he had his light. So there was a dark shadow across his face for most of the episode. And what I would do now if I had that happen, I'd say stop, and then we'd come back in and we'd fix it, and then I'd catch it in post production. But
actually, I remember that. Because Andrew, he's always got the perfect light set up and all that.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it and said, "What is that?" Oh,
yeah. Of course you did. So take us back, Jay. How'd you get started?
So probably one of the most important things that made me, I was an Air Force brat. So growing up, and it was yes sir, yes ma'am, Southern conservative Air Force man, and I was the second of 3 kids, and the problem middle child, as it turns out, which I will as a badge of honor, of course, for all the middle children out there, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Right here, middle child.
Yeah, right there. So anyway, but we we grew up all over. We never left the States, but I think I went to 8 or 9 different elementary schools and high schools. And so I think kind of what started to make me who I was, as a kid, was just having to make friends every couple of years. I mean, for those who have traveled around a lot, my wife was an oil brat, so she grew up in Europe. Same thing, traveled all over the place. But what was so interesting about that lifestyle, and it was a good lifestyle, safe, and discipline in the house, and you had accountability, and it was sometimes pops back then he softened as he grew older, for sure.
Most do,
but the way he raised us was, look, guys, whatever you decide to do, and he didn't try to tell us what to do. He wanted us to make our own decisions. Decide where to go for college, pay for our own college, just basically put ourselves through life. We created 3 great kids. Love my two sisters, and they're both doing very well as well. But what we learned was, most importantly, how to get along in a new environment, in a new world, because every 2-3 years, our world would change. Yeah. And so I was telling this guy, Larry, this tax guy, the story about, how I got into the industry, and explain that, it's a little bit like the insurance business. You get a lot of brokers out there who work under one set of contract from some larger entity like Intelisys was, and explained it all to him. And he asked a really good question. He says, "Why did you guys have so much success?" And I said, "Well, I think it was the team. I think we had the right team in place. We had good owners and ownership that would listen to our ideas for growth. And our team all cared equally as I about the success of our partners and the success of their businesses."
It was a unique place, a unique time. And I'm going to tug you back a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to tug you back to the things that led up to getting you to Intelisys and the channel, because you've had a career before the career.
I did. It was very interesting. Actually, I went to Cal State Long Beach and I studied journalism and broadcast. The TV side, the business side of broadcasting. And I didn't want to be an on-talent guy. I wanted to be a sales guy. I wanted to be a business guy. And what I figured out, and I did get a job at a little post-production house. Actually, it was pretty big in Orange County in Southern California, called Media One. And I was, at 23 years old, right out of college, I was a producer. And it was great. I mean, it was a good-sized post-production house for the time. We had 2-inch videotape, which at the time was, this
Yeah.
was 83. That was broadcast quality videotape. We had a guy who did a bunch of radio commercials, produced radio commercials. He was kind of a secondary business inside of our business. But what I quickly learned was if I wanted to make it big, you in the broadcast industry, you were going to have to move to Iowa, get a job in a small market, eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for a couple of years or more, and work your way up. Because I ended up actually getting interviews. I was in LA. I went to KNBC. I went to, I think the NBC affiliate there is KNBC.
Okay.
And met with these guys. And they were like, look, you had the blue suit, the white shirt, the red tie, looked good. Young guy, aggressive, ready to go, just graduated from college. They said, look, Jay, we really like it, but you see the line out there? There's 30 guys who know someone who work here who are ahead of you.
Okay.
I said, all right. And they all said the same thing. Go to a small market, get your experience, work for 10 years wherever, and then come back. And I just typically appealed to me. So I actually did something really interesting. A good friend of mine knew somebody in the executive search industry. Guy's name was Richard Katz, and I wish I could find him. I can't find him on LinkedIn anywhere. But he was a great guy. He had a good friend that worked for MCI, and I'll come back to that. So he says, I like it. He says, come to work for me. And I said, great. And he was filling jobs for like Computer Land and Business Land and CompuServe and what was the big copier company back then?
Xerox, Ricoh,
Xerox, but then they had some other smaller
Panasonic, all these other guys.
All those guys. So, and the company was called Video Search. And my job was to interview candidates who were looking for sales leadership jobs on video, similar to what we're doing here.
Wow.
So, and this was literally, VHS cassette tapes. So we had retail, consumer products too, like Procter & Gamble was a customer of ours, and some other companies like them. You can get that consumer products job where you get a decent salary and a free car.
Yeah, you're golden.
You remember?
Yeah, you had a car. It was golden. Yeah, my dad used to love a company car, by the way.
Love the free car.
My dad was in the insurance business. You had to drive so many miles in order to warrant having a car. But we lived in Brooklyn, Jay.
Yeah.
It's hard to put a lot of miles on when you cover territory in New York.
That's right.
I mean, it'll take you 2 hours, but you'll go 13 miles, Yeah. And so there were times he would say, hey, you want to take a ride? What? I got to go put miles on the car. We go out to Montauk, Long Island, all the way up and then, out and then all the way to the tip. And then we'd have lunch and we'd come home. I got to put some miles on the car today. So
well,
classic.
It was easy in Southern California. That's what you did was put miles on the car. Linear. That was the company I was thinking. I remember Linear.
I do. That's right. Yeah.
And top years and all that.
I do.
Anyway, so it was great. So so the reason I did it was because, well, if I'm not going to, be in the broadcasting industry and be on the business side of it, what am I going to do? So I said, what better place than a search firm to go get exposed to other industries? And so I took this job with Richard Katz and interviewed, thousands of people. Put them on videotape. So, Unilever would say, we need a consumer sales guy for this territory. Send me some candidates. So I would interview whatever number of people, or maybe it was an interview I already had done with someone that we already had on videotape. And these were short. They were like 5-6 minute interviews.
Okay.
So we would send that hiring manager a VHS cassette tape with 5, 6, 7 candidates on it.
Amazing.
You'd spend a half an hour looking at the interviews and say, I want to see Joe, I want to see Susan, I want to see Mary, whoever.
Yeah.
And that's how they would shorten the time to have somebody come in. So anyway, long story short, Richard had a good friend that worked at MCI in Orange County in Southern California.
Okay.
So Barbara, who is actually, believe it or not, she still to this day runs a search firm. So when she left
Holy
MCI,
cow.
it's called William Associates like that.
It's no longer on VHS tapes, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, not anymore.
Be classic if it were. Soon enough, it'll come back.
So Barbara sent all these people over to our office, and they weren't quite sure what they were looking for. So I met, I don't know, probably a half a dozen or more NCI salespeople. And they all walked in, they sat down in the chair, they were all fidgety, they were all super high energy. And, I interviewed them, put them on tape, and a lot of them got callbacks from our clients, right?
Wow.
You could tell they were trained salespeople. Finally, after 6, 7, 8, whatever it was, NCI people that I interviewed, I finally asked one of them off tape after the interview. I says, "Why are you guys coming over here? I know Barbara's sending you over here, but it seems like you guys have a great job at NCI. Here's this young, aggressive company, making noise in the industry, doing very well at the time." And this was, again, 83, 84. They said, "I don't know. I just think maybe there's something better. If there's something better out there, I just can't sleep at night unless I know what it is." And it was just like, I was so attracted to that personality.
Okay.
I got myself an interview at NCI, and that's how I started the industry.
Amazing. Right around the time in 83 when you were slinging 2-inch videotape, I was slinging 2-inch 24-track audio tape. So the format was big. So you see something in the DNA of these MCI folks, the backstory of the company, and you go get yourself an interview and poof, you're at MCI.
Jim Bowen.
All right.
He was the greatest guy. He was like high energy, but a little bit more seasoned. He was old at the time to me because I was 23, 24 years old, something like that.
So he was like what, 38?
He was like 35.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's old.
Yeah.
But he was great. He had the weirdest chick. He was like, "Oh, work." And he moved his shoulder. So it was the first interview. And so people that worked for him, he knew they interviewed with me. They told him about me. He goes, "I know who you are. I've had people interview at Video Search.
Oh my gosh.
Interviewed with you, and they told me about you." And I said, "Great." Well, he gave him this little He goes, "All right, I'm going to hire you." And he says, "You look like you're 12, but I'm still going to hire you." And I said, "Thanks, Jim." And the interview lasted all of 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I had a job at NCI selling lost lines, like literally door to door.
Oh my gosh.
My best close ever was a gal that was moving her office. And the receptionist was not there, so I found her in her office. All of her furniture was already gone. She had a couple of lawn chairs. Yeah, I'm dressed up, right out of my blue suit, my white shirt, my red tie, look good. She said, "Oh, come on in." And she was really embarrassed. I could tell she started to blush. She goes, "Who are you again?" I said, "Well, I'm Jay Brown with MCI. You asked me to come home and explain how I could save you some money." She goes, "I'm a little embarrassed. I don't remember. But do you have the paperwork with you? Because I'll sign up right now."
Oh, wow.
Pulled out my pen, pulled out my paperwork, got the signature. One of the best sales I ever had.
That's great.
Yeah.
They're all like that, though, aren't they, Jay? Every deal we do is just like that one.
Sometimes.
And then I woke up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Just to tell you, the nature of the deals, just to give you a little sense of the nature of the deals, I was away for a couple of days tending to my dog. She had to have surgery.
Yep.
And Friday night I went to bed. Saturday night I wake up and my wife is like shaking me. I'm like, can't be because I'm snoring. I got the machine on. I'm like practically on life support. She woke me up because she knew I was having a dream, and I was screaming in my dream, "You mother effer! I know who you are, you mother effer!" I go, this business is getting to me. Sales is getting to me. I woke up happy though. Like I remember, I'll come back to the dream at another time, but I tied it to not every sale being like that. So you close this easy deal. You're like, this is easy. I just need to do this 3-4 times a day. So take me from there. Yeah. So anyway, it was
at a night. I started a week after I got married. So when Deb and I got married in 85, May of 85, we just had our 39th wedding anniversary.
Congrats.
Thank you. So we got married. I had no job. I had already left video search and I hadn't started it at MCI yet. So that was one of my claim to fame is I got married when I was unemployed down at Laguna Beach. But I did it for about 8 months and survived. The major account guy named Larry Farr, who was from Virginia, from Northern Virginia, he happened to be in the major account world. So thankfully, I was, after 8 months, done knocking on doors. I improved myself and moved up. Got my first promotion in corporate America.
Love it.
Into major accounts, and then I had a book. So I was assigned, I don't know, half a dozen accounts, maybe a dozen. And those were my accounts to grow. And we already had relationships with those accounts. And yeah, at MCI, I mean, I was there 10 years, and you didn't stay at MCI back then for 10 years, unless you were doing something, you had work. So it wasn't a farming type thing. You still had to sell. You were just selling at a much higher level to more sophisticated buyers. So it was great. And that was it. So Larry ended up moving back to DC, which was where he was from, and he offered me a job in corporate marketing back in DC. And this was when Bill McGowan was still alive. So when I got to DC, we bought a house out in the countryside, which is where I learned I had the farm gene. Bought myself a tractor, had 3.5 acres out in the Northern Virginia countryside. It was just beautiful. And rode the train into work. And it was the hour on the mark train and then 3 metro stops to get to the office. And I was riding up and down the elevator with this icon, Bill McGowan, who founded MCI. And it's where I learned business. I learned accountability. I learned doing the simple things great. I learned, having a brand that's truly unique, focused on an audience that wants those things. I learned so much about business, and I had so much fun. I learned that, in fact, back then, I worked at MCI 85 to 95. If you remember those years, for a lot of you, that we had too much fun.
Yeah.
It was a different world back then, for sure. But it was great. Everybody played hard. Everybody worked hard. So I did 3 years back at corporate in DC, came back out to LA, worked ran a couple of national account branches in downtown LA, which was interesting in and of itself. I literally was there when the riots began. And year it was maybe 93 when the riots happened over the Rodney King thing.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. I was in my office until late. I didn't get down to the basement in my car until about 8 o'clock. And I noticed a lot of helicopters flying around out my office window. So I got in my car, and if you're familiar with LA, I was on the Harbor Freeway. It's kind of up below the surface of the landscape for the first few miles getting out of downtown LA, and then you rise above it. And when I rose above it, all I could see were fires.
Wow.
I'm like, why isn't anyone on the freeway when it was first leaving? And then because I didn't have my news radio station on, literally drove up so I could see things, and I saw 5 dozen plumes where there were fires going on.
Chaos.
So I accelerated a little bit to get to my house back and hike the beach. But anyway, it was a fascinating time. And that was my 10 years at MCI. I mean, I learned business. I learned hard work. I learned leadership. I learned marketing. I mean, it was great. There would have been no better place for me to have been at that time than MCI.
Amazing.
Yeah. MCI and they were credited with being one of the first to flatten the organizational structure through email, because we had a product called MCI Mail.
Okay.
Back in the, I think it started out of Rybrook in maybe the late 80s, 87, 88. It was our own email platform. And so instead of sending the inner office, memo, or having your secretary type a letter and send it to whoever. I could get online and send an email to Bill McGowan, and it would be there in, a second.
Yeah, all internal. My first email platform that I operated on and administered was a Lotus product called CC Mail.
Yeah.
And it was just interoffice.
I mean, it was
great.
Back then, that was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, MCI mail, if you sent your email to somebody who didn't have an email address, it would actually get printed as a letter and put in an orange envelope, and it would be sent via U.S. mail.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was interesting. Anyway, they were very forward-thinking companies. So that was the first 10 years of my career, and I loved it.
What a great opportunity to be in a training ground like that.
Yeah.
And just to have that kind of exposure, learn all of those incredibly valuable lessons. I bet you look back on that fondly.
Very fondly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only what it was and the opportunity, but also the people. MCI is a very tight-knit family even still today.
Amazing.
So a lot of those early people that I worked with, I stay in touch with. And, if you look around throughout the ranks of, a lot of the suppliers we work with today, obviously including Verizon, who ended up buying them from WorldCom when WorldCom went bankrupt. A lot of key executives have MCI somewhere in the background.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
Completely amazing. What'd you do after MCI?
So I did a little startup called Blue Horizon with a couple of buddies of mine. They were writing. It was amazing. Well, actually, I'll take you back. Before that, for those who remember the Telecom Act of 96, after I left MCI in 95, I joined a callback company, which is where I met Carol Beering.
Okay.
It was called NTC, based in Petaluma, up in Northern California. By that time, we moved to Northern California. NTC had the largest callback platform, and that was in the days when they were playing arbitrage between U.S. international rates and foreign PTT international rates.
Yeah, sure.
And so basically, if you're in France, you pick up the phone, you dial a toll-free number, you hang up, we get the signal that you need a dial tone, so we call you back at that number, you pick it up, you get US dial tone.
Okay.
And you make your international call, and it's half or a third of the price of what you'd pay to the foreign PTT in France.
Oh, wow.
Wherever.
Okay.
So that was a fascinating time. That was my first exposure to the channel, because that's how we sold.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. And it was myself, Carol Beering, a good friend of mine from Santa Rosa, California, named Tom Hackle, was the VP of Finance. Edwin Skelly was the founder and president. But it was fascinating. So I did that for about a year and a half. And then after the Telecom Act passed in 96, one of my old MCI leaders, Jack Jockway, recruited a whole bunch of us to join him. This was like a former WorldCom engineer, and he was doing some weird stuff to make a AT&T Class 4 switch do what a Class 5 switch was supposed to do and save a bunch of money. It never worked. It only lasted about a year and a half. But it was really fun. It was called US 1. And
I remember US 1.
Yeah. Yeah, they were based in Dallas.
I do remember US 1.
Yeah, they were at the Lincoln Center, right there off of LBJ and the North Dallas Flowway. So we did that for about a year and a half and had a blast again. But anyway, what was really fun was when we did Blue Horizon. So two of my buddies who were software engineers had written the first internet and data sales pricing tools for MCI. Well, MCI never protected the IP, so they put it. And so we started a company called dataquote.com.
Okay.
And it was truly a startup. It was something, this is where I originally met Rick and Rick.
Okay.
So this was during the .com era. This was like 99, 2000. And we tried to raise some money, and, we got pretty close to getting a deal done with a venture capital firm. And that's when the .com bust happened. So everything kind of went sideways, and but we had a blast doing it. We did it for about a year and a half and sold some really cool software and provided some really cool services to companies like Bell South and others. And when we didn't get the dataquote.com venture funded, we decided to go do something else. Anyway, it was one of my best stories ever. I got very nervous for a little while because I was commuting to Dallas, which is where US One was. And I was losing my position in the family structure because I was doing, 10 days in Dallas and a long weekend at home.
Okay.
Back in Northern California. So I would come home and, I would tell my 9-year-old son or my 7-year-old daughter to do something. They're like, we don't have to do that. Mom didn't.
Yeah, Mom didn't tell us to do that.
Mom didn't tell us to do that. So anyway, I got very nervous about it. US One blew up. And so I took a job with a little reseller that was near my house in Marin County. And a great little guy. I'm still friends with him today.
You had to regain hand in the home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where Henry Internet comes in. So Henry was
okay.
my sales guy down in Southern California for USDT. US Voice Telecom, or whatever it was. Anyway, he finally abbreviated it to USDT. And it was a nice little reseller, small, just resell a long distance. And, I'm 2, 3, 4 sales guys. And Henry knew Rick Deller. And this was 97, 96. So Intelisys was only 2 years old, I think. Because I think Intelisys was founded in 94. So, and Rick and Rick were doing good. Rick Sheldon was working out of his closet in his house in San Arizona. Teller was working out of a shared office with a buddy of his that gave him an office. And Henry says, I'm going to introduce you to this guy named Rick Deller. He started a new channel agency, and maybe he'll sell our product for us. Maybe he'll put it out to his partners. I said, okay. So he called Deller in a panic. Deller relayed this to me later. Henry calls Deller and he says, dude, my boss is coming down for a milk run. I got nothing. and instead, Walter says, all right, I'll see him.
I got nothing.
At the end of the day, Deller's got a soft heart. He does.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, we go to his little office in Tustin. And Henry introduces me. Hey, Rick, this is Jay. He's my boss at USVT. Hey, Rick, how you doing? Oh, great. So we chat for 20, 30 minutes. Just, about the business, about what's happening in the channel, about Intelisys, which was only 2 years old at the time. And then we ended the meeting and shook hands and said, Rick, thank you very much for meeting with me. I really appreciate it. So Henry and I walk out to the car and I tell Henry immediately, I'm like, Henry, stay here. I'll be right back. I walk back inside. Rick kind of looks up at me like, what are you doing back here? I said, let me ask you a question. He goes, go ahead. You're not going to buy a damn thing from me, are you?
Did you say that?
Yeah, exactly like that.
Okay.
And Rick looked at me and went, no, I'm not. I said, you know what? You did Henry a solid. Thank you very much for meeting with us. It was really good to meet you. Shook his hand again and walked out. Henry's like, wow, what are you doing in there? I just got a follow-up thought for Rick. Let's go to the next point. So anyway, that was how I met Rick Deller.
That's hilarious.
Wow.
Well, when we started the chat tonight, I told you I was going to learn something new about you I had not heard before. Yeah. And I got 3 things already. So we're on a roll here. This is fantastic.
Yeah, no, that was great.
So you met Deller, you're at, you're with Henry. What gets you from there to Intelisys?
Well, what ended up happening was when the reseller kind of went defunct, I became kind of a quasi-supplier manager to Intelisys for a company called Oldmail. It was an early web-based platform where you could, record a message and post it. And this was now 2001, 2002. So it was a content delivery software. And we tried to get it off the ground, and we never got the funding we needed. But Intelisys was kind enough to help us distribute it.
Okay.
And so I kind of became their the channel guy from Gold Mill. And when Gold Mill went belly up, I went and sat in Rick and Rick's office. And again, it was a very small company. This was like, I don't know, maybe late 2001, late 2002. And I said, so what do you want to do? And he said, well, we need to build a team. Because they'd been meeting with a consultant. They were going through some growing pains. They were 8 years into the business. They were having some very good success. A lot of their early partners were cable and wireless guys that Dollar knew, and back in the day. On the East Coast, out of New York, a lot of them out of the New York area. And so yeah, they were going through some growing pains, and that was the consultant. They called it the consultant. Where's Rick and Rick? They're meeting with the consultant.
The consultant.
The consultant told them, you need to build a leadership team. You need people to do this stuff so you guys can take on new roles. And so they, Rick and Rick, I'll never forget it. I was sitting in the office with them. They said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to run your company. And they both kind of looked at each other like, oh, really? I said, yeah. I said, okay. So they brought me on. And again, this was, God, thinking it was probably sometime in 2002. And they gave me everything except finance. So they kept finance for themselves. So the sales, marketing, the channel management, supplier management. And we were probably, I don't know, 22 people at the time.
Okay.
And first thing I did was help them rebrand. So I said, look, we got to figure out what we stand for. We got to produce a professional logo. Everybody as we grow this company has to know what we stand for. And they all have to say the same thing. And they agreed. And I had two really good friends that worked for PwC that were in between gigs that both worked in their M&A shop at PwC. Mark Feldman, who ended up doing our deal with ScanSource, and Don Hitchens.
Okay.
And both very seasoned guys. Like we were all in our 30s, and maybe I was 40-ish or 45. These guys were very seasoned. And I said, we need some help telling our story. I said, okay, we'll take the gig. So this was 2003, because we launched it in Vegas of 2004. So Don and Mark come in. They learn all about our business. Well, first I had to get the check. So you should have seen Sheldon handed me a $30,000 check. Do we really need to do this? Yes, trust me. Trust me on this one. Okay, here's the check. So we got them started on the consulting gig, and we literally spent almost a year and a half talking to everybody we talked to us about who is Intelisys, what are they, why do you do business with them. We talked to our partners, we talked to our employees, we talked to the media, we talked to our suppliers, we talked to everybody. And it was actually Marla Ellerman who made the best statement. Marla was the publisher of Phone Plus.
I remember Phone Plus.
Yeah, Channel Partners used to be called way back in the day on the Virgo Phone Plus. And I said, so who are we? She said, well, I think you're the biggest, but I'm not sure. And isn't Intelisys the place where the top partners go put their business? Okay, I can build a fence around that.
Yeah.
And so we kind of led with that and did our investigations, and that's when we launched Intelisys Independence to Limits. And it was
too bad it's not partner focused.
It was the perfect. It was the perfect brand.
It really is. Still is.
It still is.
It needs a reboot, right? That needs to come back, because there is nothing that personifies what the right TSD can do for an agent, whether it be a one-man band or somebody with 50 people. Yeah. It's the ultimate lure to this life.
Yeah. And,
it really is.
In our industry, and we work in lots of industries, ecosystems that operate similar to the way we operate with a lot of independent people around the country. So we launched it, and And it was a big deal at the time. We had, this was Vegas of 04 was when we launched it. We had 800 partners. 400 of them were not producing. So we cut them. We still paid them. You know, we didn't do anything nasty. You know, but they didn't have, you know, I think the biggest guy we cut was, you know, 5 or 10 grand a month in business.
Okay.
But they weren't producing. And, you know, some of those, I'd say probably 50 or more of those partners ended up coming back after we come. But the top producers wanted to see proof. They wanted evidence that we were going to really focus all of our resources on the guys that are producing, guys and gals that are producing. So, you know, I'm sitting in the corner in the fuel position under the bed. You know, is this going to work? And sure enough, the right people understood what we were doing. And they said, shit, these guys are serious. They're actually going to focus their resources on their fastest ships. And it attracted other top producers. Word got out that this Intelisys thing, these guys are actually focusing on people like us.
What year was that?
That was 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, Vegas of 2004, March 2004 is when we launched the new brand. And it worked. Of course it worked. I mean, we spent a year and a half working on it. I mean, before I came out with Independence No Limits, honestly, Vic, I had 13 pages of notes with potential taglines. And I finally narrowed it down to about 6 different taglines. Tested. In fact, salespeople are notoriously bad marketeers. So actually, what a lot of the salespeople like, I eliminated.
Yeah.
But that's how we arrived at Independence No Limits, was that 13 pages of notes.
That had to put jet fuel in the engine.
Oh, it was great. And we put
because that's a battle cry. I mean, Independence No Limits is a battle cry.
It is a battle cry, and we put beef behind it. So we actually went to all of our staff, and we explained exactly what it meant. We explained exactly what we stand for. We explained, look, if you've got to be at a doctor's appointment at lunch and you've got 3 phone calls in return, one of them is the top producer, what do you do? So we gave them real life examples. And as we went through this whole process during our monthly employee meetings, we would update the whole team on what we were doing, why we were doing it, what it meant. Down the road, one of the most interesting byproducts, in addition to doing well as a business and attracting the right target market that was attracted to who we were, one of the most interesting things was people would come in and interview. They might end up taking the job. And I asked them afterwards, why'd you take the job? They said the most interesting thing occurred. You guys made me interview with 8 different people. Everybody said the same thing. Everybody had the same reasons for why they love the company. Everybody had the same explanation for why you were having success. It was a breath of fresh air.
All oars in the water, rowing in the same direction. What a novel concept.
But going through an interview process where literally everybody I met with, from the receptionist to Rick Deller or Rick Sheldon or whoever, when I asked them hard questions about their company, they all gave me the same answer.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, that was one of the byproducts of doing the training with all the colleagues.
So this is 04, you're probably heading in 05. You relaunch, you've got this amazing message. It's a battle cry. You make some bold moves, like you chop off 50% by head count of your producers, not by volume, but by head count. You get hyper-focused on the creme de la creme. Right. And your whole mantra is, hey, we're a place where we're going to be focused on your growth. And this is, you know, I'm sort of chomping at the bit to get to, and I don't want to rush it, but I love getting to 2016 because that's where I can pick up and give some perspective as to what I've seen of all the magic that happened. But So now it's, it's 24, it's 04, 05. You relaunched the brand. You cleaned house you set the bar higher. You said, hey, you're out now, but it doesn't mean you can't come back. But we got to know you're serious about this ecosystem, because we're spending a lot of money growing everybody here. We're investing a lot, and we want to make sure this is your place. What did it look like from that point through let's say 15 or 16? Like what were the big things that happened during that time?
Well, of course, we had the Great Recession in 07, 08.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting because we were doing this. We never did that. We just did this.
Okay.
For about 2 quarters.
Yep. And this is flat for those who are just listening on audio.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's okay. It's okay.
So, and then we resumed the climb again. So the Great Recession was, I think, interesting. I think a lot of us mostly forget about the Great Recession. That was when my kids were getting out of college, and they were like, where are all these great jobs I'm supposed to get with college degree?
I was in the mortgage business during the Great Recession, so I remember it. I was working at Bear Stearns when it collapsed.
Yeah.
So arguably one of the catalysts to the domino effect happening there was Wall Street starting to tank, and the bailouts happening and all this stuff protecting the banking industry. But up until that moment, I forgot about it. But so you get through the recession, you're fortunate enough to stay flat. You come out of that, and now you're heading up again.
Yeah, we resume our growth again, and I remember coming out of that. I had made a comment to Rick and Dana at the time that, hell, I think someday we may have 50 suppliers. And they were all aghast. What do you mean? How the hell are we going to be able to produce for 50 suppliers? Like, dude, the path we're on, we got this.
Yeah.
I said, maybe it's time we had 20, 25 suppliers.
Okay.
Something like that. But anyway, as we continue to grow, in 2011, we did the right thing. We tried to break the brand. So we had just hired, I think, Rick Rivas. So we're starting to get a lot more business out of the East Coast.
Okay.
Rick and Rick had thought, we locked up the East Coast. No, they didn't lock up the East Coast. There was a lot more business still to get. So we hired Rick Rivas when he left Planet One, and opened up some new opportunities for us and extended our growth and accelerated our growth. He did a great job. But we said, hey, maybe it's about time we try to break the brand. Is it still what we thought it was in 04? So we spent a whole year thinking through, who are we? What are we going to do next? Because we were actually selling a inventory software that Dana had brought when they brought Dana into the business.
Yeah.
We had a pretty big contract with, I guess it was CenturyLink at the time, and built a whole office in Denver to manage that account. So we were becoming a much broader company than we were in 2004. So we asked ourselves, does Intelisys Independence Filament still meet all the requirements of where we're going as a business? And we really tried hard to break it, and we couldn't. We said, yeah, everything that we stand for, all the training we've given our colleagues, all the messages about meeting the needs of top performers and being the highest producing partner agency for so many of the suppliers at that time. It was actually amazing. Jeff Shepstone, who ran TBI, got an awards trip for XO one year. We were double what anybody else's production was during the year. Mm-hmm. This was probably 10 or 11. Shepstone comes up to me and goes, how'd you guys do that? I said, well, I can't tell you that, but it's possible.
I'd have to tell you.
He goes, yeah, I can't believe you guys did that. It's just like you crushed us. I mean, what you guys sold was equal to what everybody else in their channel sold. I said, yeah, it was a good year for Intelisys and XO. So anyway, that was the next big milestone, I think, for Intelisys as a company. So what we decided after we said, look, the brand still works. Everything we stand for is the right stuff. And I made a suggestion because everybody was still very private and very secretive at the time.
Yeah.
And I made a suggestion to Rick and Rick, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we put a big, and we'd already launched Club TPC. So we I think in 2011, Trisha Ward became our first $1 million platinum member of TPC.
What year was that?
2011, I believe.
Okay.
Yep. And Joel St. Germain came just after her, I think in 2012, and then it started to snowball. We got lots and lots of them. But when I rolled that program out, everybody thought I was crazy. There's no way one single partner is going to be able to produce $1 million a month. What are you smoking? You're crazy. And, now I think they've got 40 plus, 44, 45.
I think it's close to 50 now.
Yeah.
If not over 50.
So I went to Rick and Rick and said, hey, we're doing good. The business is healthy. We're making a lot of big decisions. I said, let's release our revenue. Let's tell people where we're at. And let's set a goal for the future. And, at the time, that was like, are you kidding me? Tell our competitors what our revenues are?
You're pulling the curtain back on the man, on the Wizard of Oz.
Jay, you completely lost your mind. This is it. We have to go our separate ways. You're literally crazy. I said, no, hear me out. Let's tell people where we're at because it will inspire them. And let's tell people what we want to hit. We want to be the first master agent. They used master agent back then.
Okay.
Actually, we were the first to roll out TSD. So when we were thinking about that in 2011, that was one of the things that came out of the project to try to break the brand. Let's not call ourselves master agent anymore. Let's call ourselves a technology services distributor.
Okay.
So we were the first to use that. And anyway, after some time had passed, Rick and Dana started to kind of like the idea. And I said, let's tell people where we're at. And let's tell them that we want to be the first technology services distributor to hit $100 million in annual gross commissions. And they were like, okay, let's do it. And so we were 36 million in annual gross commissions at the time. So we had to triple the business to hit 100 million. So I got interviewed by the press, and Rick and Dan all got interviewed by the press, and word got out that we had released our revenues. And nobody had ever done it. Nobody had ever even considered it. So we were the talk of the town, and there was, I won't use names, but there was one other master agent at the time who thought we were crazy and went to Phone Plus and said, you guys didn't do your homework. There's no way those guys are at 36 million in annual commissions. They're lying. And we actually got calls from the press that said, well, can you guys somehow verify that this is really where you're at? And so we didn't release information to them, but we gave them enough information that they believed us. And which was great because that even got us more breaths.
Yeah.
And so we were thinking it would take maybe till about 2018 to get there, maybe 2019. We got there in 2015. So between the end of 2011 and mid-year 2015, we tripled the size of the company.
Amazing.
So we had some big celebrations internally. We announced to the world that we had hit our target, and then we set new targets for the future. And I think at the time, we were approaching $1 billion in spend, in carrier spend, because I think it's more than double that now. I believe. I don't know that, but
well, the last I heard, it was 2.3 billion, but I could.
It's ScanSource public company, so that information's out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we were approaching $1 million in carrier spend, and we had our 100 million in annual gross commissions, and so we just kept investing, and that was 2015, and then that takes us to 2016 when I got a phone call from Rick and Dana. I had a meeting with them. I was traveling. I was at the Atlanta airport, and I was standing outside about to go ahead. We were just going to have a quick call. And they said, we're about to tell you something that if you repeat it to anyone, we're going to have to terminate your employment.
Thanks for telling me as I'm walking into a meeting. Okay.
Go ahead to the airport. I'm outside at the airport.
That's great. Hold on. Let me put you on speakerphone.
There was Sheldon who actually spoke the words. It was great. Sheldon was great. That's
great.
Dollar attorney's too big to tell you he's going to terminate. And he just didn't even want to touch the controversial stuff. You guys take care of that. So I said, okay, what do you got? Well, we've been approached by ScanSource and Hopeyes. So ScanSource said, oh yeah, haven't you been marketing to them, trying to get bars to sell marketing revenue? Yeah. Because Andrew was familiar with that world. In fact, they skipped over that whole chapter. It's another great chapter when we acquired Cloud Services Coalition back in 2020.
Oh, we're going to do another episode. It's okay. Save some for the future.
Yeah. But, so I'm saying to your court, we're what? You're what? Huh? What? Because we were on a roll. They said, yeah, we've been approached to be acquired. There's going to be some due diligence over the next, this is probably February, March. There's going to be some due diligence over the next several months. You're going to need to be involved in that. And we will bring people into that on a need-to-know basis. So, okay.
This is top of 16, right?
Probably February.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think it was funny what happened was Mike Bauer called Rick Miller and left him a message that said, hey, I'd like to talk to you about your company. And Dollar thought it was, I don't think he knew who ScanSource was. He thought it was a junk call.
Okay.
So I think Bauer called him 2 or 3 times before Dollar finally returned his call.
Love it.
And he said, I think, I'd like to talk to you about owning your company. Rick would say, I give you 12 reasons for it right now. Well, that's never going to happen. And he says, well, you're willing to talk about it. Dollar said, sure. So he went up to New York. Bauer went up to New York because Rick Dollar was living in New York at the time. And I think Sheldon came out with him. And that's where it all started. So we went into due diligence. It took 6-7 months. And in August of 16, we made the announcement. And it was great. We all had our call sheet, of partners we were closest with. Break the news before it got to the press. And my favorite call was Steve Gerhardt. I called Steve Gerhardt. Hey, what's up? I said, I got some news for you. He goes, what? I said, we're selling the company to ScanSource. They're based in Greenville. Steve, you still there? What?
Yeah, you broke up the band, Jay.
We've agreed to be acquired by ScanSource. I gotta call you that. I didn't hear from Steve for a week. Steve always picks up my calls. Steve's calls.
Yeah.
I called him a dozen times. He said,
no. Well, that's a perfect transition to the other perspective because I'm ratcheting down a corporate post in August of that year, which is pretty close to your announcement time. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And Steve calls me because I was a customer of his for many, many years since the 90s. And I tell him, hey, I'm going to hang my own shingle. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to get through this quickly. But he says, you got to come to Channel Connect with me. You got to see what my world is. So in the midst of all this enthusiasm and excitement about expanding his world into other products and services, because he was very frank with me, Steve is the first guy to tell you what he's great at, and he'll tell you what he's not great at. So Steve is very aware of those things. And he said, hey, with your network and the things about technology that I don't even tap into in the ecosystem, man, we can really create some greatness together. But in that trip was also the morning. And here's the funniest thing from my perspective. And this is, man, it took me a while to get this. I didn't get it. I just couldn't understand it. So when I go to Channel Connect, I'm expecting just another corporate conference. And why not? I've been to the ones at Chase. I've been to the ones at Bear. I've been to the ones of the other publicly traded companies I've worked for. And, that was my experience. I went to another conference, and much like the Mortgage Bankers Association conference or some, security conference or product conference specific to a vendor.
Yeah.
And I step into an environment where the first thing I notice is that everybody's smiling.
Yeah.
Everybody's happy. And you have a permagrin on your face.
Yeah.
You were walking around. You were in your element. Stevie G, what's up, Derek? What's up, Joe? What's up, Mary? What's up, Marianne? Trisha? It's like P.T. Barnum at its best. All right. And I meet these massively big personalities. And that's probably the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
But I also now am privy to all this, this undercurrent of they're selling the company. Oh my God, it's going to be over. Things are going to suck. They're selling the company. How can they possibly do this? I mean, this is 2016. Steve joined Intelisys in 2001. He didn't buy into a TSD. He became part of a family.
That's where it was.
And Jay, I didn't understand that at the front side of it, because for me, this was another corporate conference. I'll roll the tape forward very quickly for the next couple of years. What I really learned was, Steve often says, oh, Jay has this pixie dust that he sprinkles on everything. And I like when you said to him, well, Jay, Steve, it's really just a little bit more than pixie dust, but I appreciate the confidence. But what he meant that in a very sincere way, in saying that, you had this magic about you, right? And the magic was you created an environment. And I'm sure the other guys, Rick, Dana, and Carol, and the rest of the team, because everybody said the same thing. The partners were first. Over the providers, the partners were first. And the partners made the clients first. So the partners made the clients first. You made the partners first. And you made the providers work to earn the business.
Yeah.
Boy, talk about a model for success. But Steve vacationed with people in the channel. Yeah. Steve looked forward to the TPC trips.
Yeah.
Right? Steve had some of his best memories and times. I ruined the TPC trips for Steve because Steve used to take his buddies. All of a sudden, we're taking the wives. He's like, oh, does your wife want to come? He blames me, but kind of kidding. But really, he brought his wife, so it encouraged me to bring mine. Yeah. I'm sure my brother would have loved to come to the trip, but Steve was bringing his college buddies and his Army buddies and all stuff. TPC, I'm sure it was debauchery, but it was a good time, right? All was safe and fair in TPC trips. But so now I start getting the sense of why I've been part of how many M&As? Maybe a half a dozen, 8 of them up until this point in my financial services and banking career. It's another transaction. You're going to get a role. You're going to get a spot. You can do that. No. This was way different. This was legitimately like a parental divorce of the greatest parents in the entire universe. Yeah. In a sales organization. Yeah. So imagine, and this is the best way I describe it to people. Imagine you're part of this family and you have this great set of patriarchs, matriarchs, and this is all the people in Intelisys. And all of a sudden you find out that the family is getting a divorce and people are going to be heading in, and you're getting new parents. Maybe not necessarily that the new parents are bad, but they're going to be different.
Yeah.
And you had the greatest parents in the entire, you could have ever asked for, from a personality. Like I said to Rick Deller once, we were at a dinner in Vegas. We had a couple minutes before the dinner. And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, I kind of know the answer you're going to give me, but I want to see how honest you're going to be with me. I said, when you had Jay, you had Carol, you had Andrew Pryfogle, and you, and Sheldon, and Dana. And I went through a couple of, some of the, the regional managers and all that.
Yeah.
I couldn't point to a single personality that was like the next one.
Yeah.
And I said, you either are the luckiest bastard in the entire planet to have put together a grouping of people that say the same thing, do the same thing, fight for the same mission, but offer so much diversity in their personality, in their approach, but it all works. All the holes are filled. I said, are you a lucky son of a bitch? Or you're really that smart? Well, it's Rick, and I love Rick. Rick, if you're listening, I love you. But he said to me, oh, what are you fucking kidding me? Of course it was planned. Of course it was absolutely planned. We hand-selected everybody. But regardless of how you got there, I don't care how you got there. That was my observation for Intelisys at the time. Yeah. Nowhere had I ever witnessed a level of loyalty that came from an agent community to a particular ecosystem, to a particular company. Loyalty on a scale of 1 to 10, 23.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, and I'm going to shut up for a little bit here, but this is relevant to where you're heading. When I joined Stevie G in the channel after the 2016 Channel Connect and we started coming back around, we went to Vegas. And you know the story, but we went to Vegas to Channel Partners in 2017. And at the time, there were some other products available at Avant that weren't available at Intelisys.
Yeah.
And Steve was in mourning, and he was, part of him was in mourning, part of him was anger. Part of him was regret. Like he was going through all the emotions of Intelisys not being what it was to him up until his time. And I said, we should meet with these guys from Avant. They're two young, smart guys. It's an alternative. And so Steve, you would have told him, you would have thought I suggested we go to a brothel and send a videotape to his wife.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like very uncomfortable. So we set up the meeting. He picks the restaurant because he thinks it's going to be out of the way. Meanwhile, it's in the hotel that, the event's happening. And I don't think we sit down, and 60 seconds later, we look up and you and Rick and Dana and Carol are all at a table, not 20 yards away. Yeah, we just pointed at exactly the same time. And Steve looks up and his bottom fell out.
Yeah.
He was nauseous the entire time. At the time, honestly, Jay, I'm like, what is he nauseous about? We're having, it's not like we're going anywhere. It's like we're just, this is a business meeting. No. To Steve, it was way more than a business meeting. It was infidelity.
Yeah.
It was. And really, that was my first awakening to the magnitude of what you guys had created from a brotherhood, sisterhood, loyalty, independence, no limits. Steve on the cover of Phone Plus, you got him out there. I remember I had a couple copies of that magazine. He was so proud of it.
Joe Agent.
Yeah, Joe Agent. How you created celebrations around everybody in the channel. And and people have some crazy personalities. And I think I once said to you, Jay, you created a bunch of Frankensteins. For Christ's sake, I think you hand screwed the bolts into the neck on some of them. And you said to me, yes, I did. Yeah. With pride, by the way, with pride.
Yes,
So,
Trish was on the cover too. I think it was still Phone
Plus. Oh, it's great.
$1 Million Woman.
Oh, unbelievable.
She had her platinum status. She was front cover, beautiful picture close up of Trisha Ward, $1 Million Woman.
Man. Hey, man, my hat's off to you, to that entire team. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it was magic.
And not up until that point, and since then.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
There's a case study that could and should be written about that era of Intelisys. And not what ScanSource is put together is bad. I'm not suggesting that. It's just different.
It's different. Yeah.
It's just different. I certainly wouldn't disparage anybody. And ScanSource brings a lot of depth and strength into the organization financially that just hadn't existed before. Not that you guys were on your heels, but nonetheless, it's publicly traded, different company, different sort of investment capital and appetite.
Yeah.
But the family thing is different, and that is so hard to create, especially when you've brought in. I had a phone call on Saturday with Danny Passacantilli, one of your favorites, right? Danny is talk about a character. He's a crazy great dude, but he's they always say he's crazy. I go, yeah, but he's my crazy.
Yeah,
he's my crazy. I love talking to him. And he's been very successful. He's done his own thing, sort of rolled it up, all that. He still talks about the days of glory at Intelisys.
Yeah.
Despite all his success, despite all the things he's got going on in his life that are great, and I won't list them in detail, but they're fantastic.
Yeah.
They really are. But he's a heads down grinder, and he's adjusting to not really having to do that. But he does also reminisce. Trisha reminisces.
Oh yeah.
All of the other people. I'll leave the names out to protect the innocent. There are many, many, many people that I run into, whether it be at a TPC trip or a Channel Partners or a Channel Connect or CCW or any event that you run into channel folks where they're not sort of still, and this has been 8 years since the announcement, 4+ years since the final execution, the change, and people still talking to it like the deal happened yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, and I honestly, I got to hand it to Bauer. When we came in, he said, look, you guys are super successful. We're going to learn your side of the business. You're going to learn our side of the business. But I'm going to do my very best to let you guys do what you do and leave you alone. And honestly, for 3.5 years, he was true to his word. It was the hardest 3.5 years of my career. We tried to get people not to jump off the ledge because the family, had split up. And I kept saying, look, guys, yes, it's different. We have a different cap table and a different ownership structure. And, there are other priorities in ScanSource's business other than just us. But we're going to continue to run this thing the way we've run it. And I think to a large degree, we did. Right up until, we left in kind of early 2020 and then mid-2020 when the deal was completed. So, I think for all the fear and concern of people, we were very much the same company for a number of years after the acquisition.
Yeah. No doubt. Uncertainties certainly starting to settle in and escalating.
Yeah.
But
I think appreciated that we worked so hard on keeping that
containment
and the camaraderie that we had. Because those were, 2017, 18, 19, those were 3 of our biggest growth years.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna move us along a little bit, if you don't mind. So you take that through transition, and then you have a 2-year non-compete, which you honored to the letter of the law. And then sort of, mid 2022 is kicking around, and there's a lot of activity in the space on aggregating partners. People call them the roll-ups. You take 10 people who are doing 2 million each or $1 million each, and now you've got something formidable. And there's a lot of appetite, be it from private equity or from other companies that don't have recurring revenue.
Yeah.
And sort of, we start seeding this idea around, doing our own. And Jay, we come to you, for not only your years of wisdom and, your experience in the space, but honestly, for some of the pixie dust too, And so for the listeners that may not know, you can go out on LinkedIn and you can check out Jay's profile. But Jay and I have been shoulder to shoulder launching a new co called Caption for the last 18 months, et cetera. And, it's a roll up. But Jay, given we've got a little bit of a time constraint here, talk to me about, when you came out and, we initially talked. Tell me what you liked about Caption and why it was something you thought you could get behind.
Yeah. It was a different model. It was a model that allowed the partner to earn an increased multiple by delaying gratification, to be able to be part of a community of like-minded people that thought their business was worth more than they could get for it today or whatever day that was. And it was a give back. What attracted me so much to Caption was you've said this many times, one of our partners said, "You guys have the best math."
Yeah.
And we do. And Capcom does have the best math. In terms of multiples and what you think a business is worth and what you can, in the end, get for it. The math and the particular strategy that we brought to market is one that I'm very proud of. Always have been, always will be. Because it goes to what my core is. It's like, it's not about Caption. It's not about M&A and marketplace. It's about you. It's about your business, and it's about maximizing the value of your business and maximizing your ability to sell more, earn more, and have fun doing it. And so that's what attracted me to Caption, still does today.
Love it.
And, although there are major hurdles for everybody in the M&A space, rolling out partner bases, everybody that we've talked to that has heard our story, and that's hundreds of partners, they get it. They get it. They say, "Yeah, I totally get it." In fact, we probably had a half a dozen or more partners that says, "I thought about doing that."
Yeah.
I talked to 3 or 4 of my closest partner friends, and we said, "What if we do this on our own?"
Yeah.
And, that's kind of where we're at right now is, having lots of people kind of inside the circle, some people just outside the circle, and others who have heard our story say, "Yeah, that could potentially be something I can be part of," because I understand that what Caption is trying to do is to put additional dollars in my pocket for what I've built, based on a different model than I can get somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at today.
That's huge. I want to sort of wrap our stuff up here by asking just one or two questions.
Okay.
What would you tell somebody who's in technology? Maybe they're in sales, maybe they work for a company directly. They haven't gone out on their own to sort of hang their own shingle and come into the channel. What would you tell them about the opportunity in the channel first and foremost? And what advice would you give them about, the early part of that journey?
Well, to your first question, ironically, it's the same message that we put out in the marketplace in 2011, because there's always going to be people that says, our business has hit its capacity. Our business has hit its pinnacle. It's not that it'll grow as fast in the future, and maybe it's not all downhill, but it's just not going to be like it was. And every time that's not true. Every time, if you remind people of what's happening in the space, I am incredibly bullish on the channel and the growth of the channel. Every lever points in our favor. Every big company out there wants less direct and more channel. That's just the nature of it. That's
factual.
It's factual. You follow Jay McBain or any other analyst out there, they'll tell you the channel's going to outgrow direct by, leaps and bounds. So there's a huge opportunity there. To your second question, and there always will be. I mean, unless something changes that I don't see, which I don't could. But I've been bullish for 20 plus years on the channel. The channel's never disappointed. To your second question about what is the most critical thing, I think it's the same thing we did in Intelisys. You have to figure out what you stand for. So if you're just getting started in the channel, you're hanging a shingle out there. Maybe you're selling some new products. Maybe you're AI focused. Maybe you're security focused. Maybe you're something, that we haven't even talked about yet. That's going to be the next big thing in the channel. I think that for people starting out, they just have to figure out early on what they stand for, what their specialty is, focus on that, and get attention. Right? It's always been the same 4 T's: attention, awareness, and connection. That's what you got to get people through.
Yep.
But you got to get attention first. The way you get attention is by telling a good story. And a good story is always about, this is my niche, or niche, depending on how you like to say it.
Okay.
And if a partner just hanging out to shit, it doesn't mean, I always tell people this, it doesn't mean you can't sell all the other stuff.
Yeah.
But you've got to have a focus. You've got to have something that you clearly explain to people that gets them excited. And you're in front of a new customer for the first time, and, they're like, wow, you seem to know more about this than anybody I've talked to on this topic. Let's have another conversation.
Exactly.
And you get in the door, you provide, even in the case of like what Andrew Greifel is doing over at CX Effect.
Yep.
You get in the door with something that's interesting and unique, that resonates with your target. And then sure enough, a month later, a year later, 5 years later, they pick up the phone and call you. They say, hey, I have this other problem that I need to solve. Can you help me? And there you go.
The niche is the best advice you could give anybody.
Yeah.
Because, and I can tell you from, hand-to-hand combat experience, the second you walk in there and Coach Tony pulled from, maybe from a Zig Ziglar book or something that basically said a confused mind doesn't buy. I'm not sure that's the source, but I heard it first from Tony. It's from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And boy, when you walk in and you go, hey, I'm your telecom guy, and I'm your cybersecurity guy, and I'm your contact center guy, and I'm your UCAS guy, and I'm your MSP guy, and I'm your BPO guy, and I'm your AI guy, you could see the eyes flickering like a pinball machine, right? If you bring value in a very specific niche and you become trusted, hence the term trusted advisor. I have been fortunate and blessed with customers that now when their people in the company are looking for key solutions, leadership says, have you called D&M? Have you called Vic?
Yeah.
Boy, that's a gift. And so I started that phone call with that particular customer I'm referencing, started with a very particular and narrow niche, but I've expanded the value proposition over time. Now, on the other hand, the downside of the niche, and this is where you really have to work hard to make sure you don't get pigeonholed. You come in, you do one thing, and you'll get overlooked for 2, 3, 4 things. If you're not in front of your customer, if you're not educating them on what how expansive your opportunities are, if you're not letting them know what you have the capability of doing, they'll go, that's my telecom guy. Why would I call him for AI? That's my telecom guy. I didn't know he can help me with BPO or managed services. Like, why would I do that? So we at D&M have worked very hard over the past, 8 years to get wider in the organization. And still to this day, and this is a true story, I was in the car with a very good friend. And this will tell you how hard it is. I was in the car with a very good friend who told me he was speaking to somebody from our past about AI. And I was the best man in this guy's wedding. Okay. And I said to him, I can't believe what you're telling me right now.
Yeah.
He said, what's that? I go, are you telling me you're going to talk to somebody else about the stuff I've been doing all day, every day for the last 2+ years?
Yeah.
And that put a team around it? He had no idea. This is one of my best friends.
Yeah.
I was the best man in his wedding.
Yeah.
So if that's not an example of being able, needing to educate your people, but you're right, land with that niche, get that conversation going, build that trust, deliver, and then move on. It's been great.
Because if you do a good job of communicating, once you're trusted, because that's a big piece that I think people fall off on. They forget to tell those important customers that they gain trust from, that they moved into this area, that area, this area. I mean, because there's nothing wrong with telling them afterwards. Yeah. Once you gain their trust, make sure you keep them informed. But the question was, what would I tell somebody that was hanging up their shingle for the first time? I would say, don't boil the ocean.
Yeah.
Grab a thing that you know best, work that thing until you get your legs and you got some income coming in. And then once you do, then you can expand from there.
Love it. Hey, Jay, been a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. I did learn a few more things, which I expected but didn't expect, but expected. I think the audience is going to love this episode. I think they're going to love hearing about you and sort of your backstory on the channel and the moments of greatness along the way. So I can't thank you enough for coming on tonight and sharing that with everybody. Really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. I wish you the best of luck with 10,000 miles. It's a big topic.
I appreciate it. Well, have an amazing evening.
It's a big topic, and I'm glad you're doing that. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning into the show. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, the Podcast Index, and Podcasting 2.0. We'd really appreciate if you download Fountain, find us there, and support us via value for value. We hope you enjoy the show. Happy listening.